Hello everyone, I'm Forrest McFreelava, and this is episode 2 of Speedplay Greece in Victoria 2. I want to really quickly go ahead and say thanks everyone who left a comment after the last video and who just went ahead and watched. Thank you very much. I wasn't actually sure if anyone would find it after all this time, so it's really awesome. Anyway, though, to get back to what we are going through right now, we're 11 years and about 6 months into the game. We have an absolutely sprawling colonial empire. We have retaken Crete, we've taken Sicily, all sorts of territory in Asia, and we have aided the British in getting a foothold in China. Now, ideally, we had wanted to get Shandong. The main reason for that was just because it's incredibly populous, and the sheer amount of resources we would get from that region would just really push us over the edge in a few ways, give us much more in the way of troops that we could recruit. We would have a stronger economy, and yeah, really, that's basically the two main reasons. It is the most gamey thing that you can do, and I had considered not going back to war against the Chinese because of that. I had said that I'm very shameless about just going after the best thing. Turns out I really have some reservations, but we're still going to do it. We have until August before we can fabricate a casus belli, but we're still going to just go ahead and go through. Since we did, in the last session, I closed the game, which means our economy is going to freak out for a few days, but we have a decent reserve, so that's pretty good. Our fleet is doing decently well. We took over Sicily, which is great. That is a fairly wealthy place, and we can actually build factories in there. And they actually do have a factory already, so we'll open that up, subsidize it at least for the moment, and expand upon it. And they actually are making glass, which works out very well for our own production because we produce quite a few fruit. So we can go ahead and we're going to have to switch to a reactionary party because our reactionary party is state capitalist, but our conservative party is jingoistic, and our reactionaries, for whatever reason, aren't jingoistic, which is kind of odd. So what we're going to do, just get our fleet all landed. We're probably not going to move around with our navy all that much. Even when we do declare war on the Chinese and get the British to help us in that effort, we're not actually going to actively fight them. What we may end up doing, now I do want to take over all of these territories and basically reform the Greek Empire. That would be a pretty awesome end-game objective. One of the risks with that is that Persia might try to civilize. Let's go ahead and take a look at their civilization level. They're getting there, which is kind of worrying. They're allied to a few places, which isn't really as worrying. They don't have very many in the way of very many brigades. And the Russians like them. Alright, so since the Russians like them, we're going to have to bring the British into war with Punjab. So that'll be our next objective. That way we'll have a direct line for British forces to march into Greek Asia, into Persia, and fight the Russian forces that'll all be piling into there. And that'll actually work out really well for our late-term goals, because once we get this line of support, which, I can actually just be using the battle plan editor for this sort of thing. We won't really, well, let's just see. Alright, so essentially what we're going to want to do is open up for the British a big causeway from which they can charge all of their Indian forces through Greek Punjab over into Persia and then battle all of the Russian and allied forces who are going to be showing up and just kind of attempting to destroy us. So that's really the goal. And I think that the British will win if they're fighting the Russians. I know it's kind of a ridiculous thought since the Russians can bring to bear their entire land force while the British can only bring what they have in India. So if we go to war with China first, then the British will have to garrison their Indian possessions more strongly to fight the Chinese. Then we'll take over Punjab, and then we'll move against the Persians. And when we move against the Persians, hopefully the war against China will have ended, but the British will still have their forces primarily in India. Once that happens, we should be in a pretty good spot to make this work. Now, whether or not that's how that's actually going to happen, that's pretty much up to fate. But we still have about a month left before we have to put any of that into effect, so we're pretty well off. In fact, we can even start cutting funding to our military, our glorious military, which has done so much good for us in the last few, series of colonial wars. And you'll notice that we only have 13.42 infamy because we got incredibly lucky with fabricating all of these claims in the uncivilized world. Now, that's really obviously not something that you can just bank on. So we're going to need at least, well, 15 infamy is the max that we could get by going into China and then Punjab and then Persia. We're probably not going to get that much, but, you know, knock on wood, because there's a very real possibility that we just will anyway. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and justify a war. We're going to demand a concession against the Chinese. Hopefully that'll work out. And then really we can just switch to a reactionary party as soon as anyone discovers what we're doing, because at that point it doesn't matter. We're not really worrying about time. Let's see. What do we need to get now? We may as well get Malthusian Thought, and... Whoops, alright, I just had a thing up in the background that I didn't realize would be a little annoying there. Well, whatever. Anyway, though, it doesn't matter. Moving forward, we are... Well, we're just justifying the claim now, the war. We're going to go ahead and... Let's see, show empty states. What we need to do, and we don't really have the ability to do it now, though, is really just think of what our lands can produce best, which I'm thinking just a wine factory here, and probably just a wine factory there as well. We could probably make liquor, but it looks like we're only making 4.5 units of wheat, and we're making 9 units of fruit. Oh, and there we go, we've got 2.1 infamy, which isn't that terrible. That means 2 months of peace, and we can just go ahead and fabricate on Punjab and Persia, basically simultaneously, not that that's something we're going to do. I'm not actually moving the focus away just yet. I might eventually, but... Or I'm moving our political party away from conservative to reactionary just yet. Just because we're really not in that much of a rush to build factories anyway, even though we can now. Simply due to the fact that we don't really have... Well, we don't really have very much in the way of population in our homeland. We have something like... Well, actually, let's just find out exactly what it's like. So Greek Sicily has 500,000 people, and it is the largest state we own by about a factor of 3. That's not probably accurate, but it has 3 times as many people. Alright, meanwhile, America's doing some stuff. We were slowed down a little, but it didn't really matter. Now let's go ahead and see if the British will help us in this. Once again, we're going to be going after Shandong, although I don't think that the British Empire will actually give it to us. And if they do, then that's just amazing. They'll accept, we'll go ahead and declare war. Oh, Christ, what? Alright, so the British just didn't help us. Okay, well, so we're at war with this entire blob of Asia. Realistically, did we ever build a naval base here? We did not. Let's go ahead and build that. We'll also build a fort just to be safe. We're going to be losing a bit of money, which isn't the most optimal thing in the world. Alright, so how do we turn this around? Well, oh, and the British broke their alliance because of that. And they will not accept because of current wars. Okay, that could be much better. The Russians will also not accept. Luckily, we don't have to worry about anyone declaring war on us. Let's take a look, because we are still in the British sphere of influence. So while that is somewhat of a disaster, it's not the worst. Let's go ahead and switch that away from bureaucrats to clergymen. Alright, so where are we even sending our boats? I kind of forgot. We'll make this control group 2, this one control group 1. We were sending them over to our Indian possessions. We'll go ahead and build a naval base and a fortress there as well. We could probably stop funding our soldiers quite as much as we are right now. Or paying them lower wages at the very least. It looks like we're already getting occupied, which isn't really surprising, to be honest. We do have another fleet somewhere. It's still in Greece, which isn't really helpful at all in this moment. We'll go ahead and try to send them straight to Johor Bahru. Will the British at least give us military access? That's the next big question. They will, so that's mediocre. It could have been better, but it could have been much worse. Now we'll just go ahead and try to have them both land at roughly the same time, just for convenience sake. And then we are funding our army units, so they should be gaining organization. It looks like they don't gain organization, or at least not as quickly while they're on boats, which isn't ideal. But anyway, so we'll go manage to win a quick battle against some of these forces and hopefully not have to deal with that too much. We should actually probably be getting army techs. In fact, we'll get the army techs so we can actually build various types of cavalry units. Education is going to be important, but that's really more of a long-term sort of goal. Alright, and you know, we may as well just switch over to that reactionary party, because state capitalism is going to be more helpful to us than really anything else, since we're not going to be able to justify any wars for a while, since we're going to be just really dug into the war that we're, well, now deeply involved in. So our navy is on the way. We're going to have to be fighting, well, we're just going to have to be an active participant in this one. I don't know if we're actually going to get anything. We will need, I'm not sure how much war score we'll need. 17. We'll need 17 war score. We could get that by battles if our armies are capable of winning the battles. That's kind of a large if. It's, in fact, kind of a concerningly large if. We will probably be able to take over the few islands just scattered about. We'll definitely not be able to fight the Chinese on the Chinese mainland. So that's those are definitely things to consider. Now, we don't really have very much in the way of troops. We can build several... Oh yeah, right, that's right. We can build several Italian troops now. We'll wait until we can build cavalry of a different sort, and hopefully that'll be more useful. Alright, our navy, we will send a half out to just kind of clear the seas a little bit and get us some naval victories, which will hopefully get the war score up a little bit. What we might want to do, well, realistically I should have gone for Formosa, because that would have been an easier just chunk of land to claim. Well, you know, no sense really fretting about it, since there's nothing we can do about it at this point, other than, you know, endure. So, let's see. We are going to let our navies heal up a little bit. I'm not sure, well actually they won't heal up because we don't have any naval bases yet, so we didn't really plan this out as well as possible, although admittedly this just wasn't really a circumstance I had anticipated. We're going to insist that Greek Sicily is ours. Hopefully we didn't just take on a... Hopefully we didn't do more, we didn't bite off more than we could chew by taking Greek Sicily. As a crisis flashpoint, it actually looks like it's considerably dangerous for us. So that might be bad. We might end up fighting the world over something that we really, well, we're not in a position to fight the world. We may have wanted to just stay fighting third world areas. Although, you know, I imagine it'll benefit us considerably for the time that we hold it. We'll go ahead and land some troops on this island. Hainan. Not really going to try to pronounce those sorts of things. And right, so we're just going to be doing this for a while. Hopefully we'll be able to get a large enough control over, I guess, the seas around China that we'll be able to pull off this sort of war. We'll probably have to detach a frigate or two. Probably just 2 frigates just to be safe so they don't just die. And yeah, hopefully the blockades will be, you know, fairly effective. Although that really remains to be seen. Where's this fleet? Still on its way. Kind of wounded, not that great. We'll move them over there. Hopefully they'll make it. And yeah, we'll just be taking all these islands. Well, we really already took all the islands we can. We could land in southern Vietnam, and then we'll have vision over the rest of Vietnam. They are simply an ally of China, so it looks like we might be able to get away with that. And in fact, it looks like we'll have to drop some of our forces off over here. Instead of in Vietnam, we will just... We'll land right now, kill that force, and then land in southern Vietnam. We'll put our navies in such a way, if I can find that third group. Oh, did they all sink? Huh. Alright, well that's odd. I didn't pay enough attention to what happened to them. Alright, well, ignoring that for the moment, for the time being. Yeah, we'll just have to go and invade Vietnam. Now, we are losing because of defender blockades. That's very interesting. Korean forces. Okay. Okay. Okay, that's annoying. Let's see what we can do about that. We can build quite a few of these boats. We don't really need that many frigates. We really can't afford that many frigates, so we'll build 8. We will go ahead and build... Are we building navies in all of these places? We probably are. Yeah, we'll stop building these 2 frigates. Instead, we will build up our army a little bit. Looks like we can get dragoons already, so that's good. Get some infantry, and we'll just double up on the infantry. We'll have all of those rally to Palmero, since it has a port already. We can mobilize some people, not really enough to really have it matter, but hopefully enough to change things around a little bit. And we will build a dragoon in Asia. Not that it'll likely become relevant, but it might. Alright, so where are we losing sieges? Right there for sure, and right there, but we can deal with that. And then we'll turn the war back over to Vietnam, where it looks like they have a considerable force, but not one that I think is too much for us to handle. The Chinese might flood in and support them. In fact, I would pretty much say we should expect that. And let's see if we can't defeat them. If we can defeat these forces, then that's great. And it looks like we will be able to. Alright, of course we can't chase them down because they have a fleet blockading us in. So that explains why our other fleet died. It was hit and, well, just killed by that Chinese force. Alright, so let's see if we can't identify the location of that Vietnamese army. Oh, there it is. Alright, so we'll just bring our whole navy to bear on them, just to drop off troops, and that'll bring the whole army to bear on them. Looks like, wait a minute. Oh. I wonder what that peace deal was. I clicked it before I had seen it, so that's not really helpful for us. I wish I could just encourage these people to be more down with the idea of being Greeks now. That's not really a thing, though. Alright, so we don't really have any money. Luckily, we had saved our money up to build factories, and that basically saved us for the moment where we had to spend all that money on new boats to defend ourselves. And we'll just go ahead and smash that Vietnamese army. And in fact, it's probably overkill to bring the whole of our army to bear, so we'll just drop another half in Saigon. Alright, so there we go. Battle victory. Still at -5 due to defender occupation and blockades. But battles are turning in our favor somewhat. And hopefully these occupations will turn it even further into our favor. And we might even be able to demand something out of the Vietnamese. I'm not really sure what I would want to demand at the moment. We'll also, in Greek Sicily, just go ahead and start encouraging these people to be soldiers. Since we have the most people in our country in Greek Sicily, that makes sense that we would just kind of shift the focus there. Luckily, these Chinese client states or sub-states don't really seem to be all that enthusiastic about supporting the Vietnamese allies, which is great news for us. And there we go. We're going to take over these various regions and then move our navy up. Hopefully we'll get considerable war score from doing these sorts of activities. We don't really have a blockade in place around China proper. That'll probably be a long time coming. And hopefully once all of these frigates are constructed, they'll all stay put since they're very much at risk of just getting killed by that group. Alright, so yeah, they'll all stay put for a while, and then hopefully win that naval battle, and that should turn that around for us in its own little way. Alright, so realistically, if we do manage to win this war, which I'm not saying is impossible, and in fact it might be imminently possible, imminently doable, We won't go all the way to the border of these Chinese substates, since I think that would probably provoke them to attack, basing that kind of off of just a weird idea I have based on how the AI has reacted to me over the years. Kind of just almost based on faith a little bit right there. But I mean, they're not attacking us right now, so it seems like there's something to that thought. And the Vietnamese seem to be having a decent amount of difficulty getting, well, really anything to bear against us. Can we actually cut these guys off before they go somewhere weird and do something awful? Doesn't seem like it. Alright, let's look over here. Still have a while before we can really safely win this, but I'm going to go ahead and go for broke on that, because it seems like it's probably doable. And worst case, our Navy is united now. And it looks like we're just winning that out loud. That's great news. We'll go defeat that one group. We don't have any transports in the area, which is less than optimal. But not really game breaking or anything that'll kill us. Good. Alright. And now back to the Vietnamese efforts. So that brings us up to slightly positive war score. And we're just moving through Vietnam. Let's stop all this influenza. We're going to need better medicine in time, but that's probably a long-term sort of thing. Now, I'm almost certain that we can't land in, say, Hong Kong without any of these states just murdering all of our troops. So we're going to avoid anything that just outrageous for now. But we can go and blockade them a little bit, probably with a decent level of certainty that it won't be the death of us. I'm not really sure how far the British naval reinforcement range is going to go. We're going to just keep researching military techs, although I do want positivism, since that will help us in the long term. And, you know, realistically, let's get practical steam engines. We're probably not going to fight any crazy battles, and if we do, if we get into a point where our army techs matter, then we're already probably going to lose the battle, since they have just so many more forces than we do. Alright, so it looks like the British base doesn't actually help us very much, so we're just going to pull our navies back to areas where we can supply them. And yeah, so the goal is going to be, we're going to press up, take up to Hanoi. That's not really going to help us all that much in terms of war score. We really need to be hurrying this along, since we're going to get penalized for not taking the objective province, and we really have no means of taking the objective province. So the more occupations we can win, the quicker is just going to be the better for us. And hopefully that'll end pretty quickly, and then we can just demobilize our population. Alright. And that brings our war score up to +4, so that's good. Battles at 4, occupations at 5 or so, including blockades. So maybe not the most doable thing. Yeah, we'll respect people's beliefs because we may as well. Looks like they want something now. We're going to try to get people to support socialism, just because we want healthcare and schools at some point. And worst case, if the Chinese prove to be undefeatable, what we will be able to do is just not ever make peace with them, and leverage our not making peace with them into, well, we'll not make peace with them, and because we won't make peace with them, it'll increase our own militancy, which will allow us to pass more social reforms, since our people will be so upset about the endless war that we'd be in. And I guess we'll just keep on pissing off our socialists right now. Alright, so where we can still go is we can go to this Korean island. Vietnam or Dai Nam wants peace, but we're just going to turn them down, since there's no real reason for us to make peace with them at this moment. Oh, the Ottomans declared war on Egypt. We don't really need any Egyptian land right now, so that's not really a big opportunity that we're wasting. Just kind of, it's a little sad for us to see that that's happening. We'll also merge these forces together. You'll notice our Navy's taking quite a lot of attrition. Our naval bases are almost done. Not really So close. In fact, let's actually bring these guys back and land them, since it definitely looks as though we're taking a lot of attrition that we don't need to take, and that might actually sink a few of our ships. Alright, wow. We actually don't have very much in the way of a navy right now. So we'll move all of these units that can take a decent amount of damage still. We'll combine all that, we'll move them over. These three, we're going to have to be really careful getting them back home. But it looks as though we can get them back without taking any attrition, so long as they get through this province in a month, or that naval sea zone in a month. These boats can come up and support, and we'll just take over this island, and we'll have to rush back as quickly as we can to drop our boats off in a safe port. So this is going to be difficult. They're offering us peace, they want a white peace, let's just not do that. Let's look at what America got. Not fully America, still have that weird thing. Alright, we'll go ahead and land again. These boats don't really need to support the rest of our forces right now. Oh, right, they were there to prevent that exact circumstance. Well, alright. We'll go ahead and try to just chill till the end of the month. There we go. Bring these forces all back and land and try to just recoup our naval damage. We could probably ask for quite a lot from the Vietnamese. Although, I'm not sure if it's anything we would really want. Since their provinces don't really have very many people or really any resources that we really crave at the moment. Since realistically we could just ask for Formosa and that would get our war score back to at least a neutral level, and then we would at least get something out of all this effort. I'm not sure how they got troops there, but we'll mobilize again and just deal with that as quickly as we can. Still saying no to Vietnam or Vietnam. Alright, and our Navy should be able to, well, get a little stronger from here. So that's very good news. So what are we going to do for the next little while? Well, we're going to have to deal with that. We're going to have to get our budget more in order, which really there's nowhere to cut. We can't really tariff people since we're not importing very much, and really why would we be at this point? We can cut education funding a little bit. It kind of sucks, but what are you going to do? And once we defeat this army, we should be able to demobilize, although it doesn't seem like it's really having that much of an effect. The just weight of having our forces mobilized. Alright, demobilize, and there we go. Alright, so the war's at 2%, and it's getting worse. We won't be able to add another war goal if it gets, you know, even further, just in this direction. Can we ally the British yet? No, they still hate that we're in this war, and that's probably not going to change. Our Navy is at least strong enough that we can realistically... No, we'll wait till the end of the month. Alright, there we go. That actually helped quite a bit. Alright, so what we can do, we can probably retake Formosa, probably go back over here, pick up more troops, drop them off in Korea proper. We'll probably not do that just yet, since that is still very risky. So that brings up the question of what practically can we achieve. And it looks like we can't even take back Formosa since they have a garrison on it now. Is that Formosa? No, this is Formosa. What am I talking about? We can't land back on Guangdong. Now what we can do, although this isn't really a good idea, is we could land in British-occupied China and then move and launch raids against Chinese troops. If our armies were better, I would totally be for that, but they're really not, so it's kind of a bad idea. We can probably just start invading Korea, move up through Korea, probably get Chinese forces involved, and then just kind of see where that takes us. It'll definitely give us occupation war score, and kind of screw over Korea a little bit, but it looks like these might actually be some wasted years, and we may want to just cut our losses and get a white peace. Or, who knows, request Formosa, and then we at least get something, but now we're at 0% war score, so that might even be a reach. What we will do, though, is we'll spread our forces around, We'll spread our navies around and start really just bothering them, getting them as really just as blockaded as possible. That should hurt their economy at least a little bit and give us enough war score that we can actually make a demand. And we will demand Formosa. Alright, and it looks like that's actually a really low-hanging fruit as far as war goals go. And it doesn't seem like any of our forces are actually taking attrition now, so we can maintain this blockade. Can we actually press that all the way over to here and completely blockade the Chinese? It looks like we can. We managed to finish that research, which is great. We'll get the trustee system because, sorry guys, but we do need an economy. And yeah, we'll focus on positivism. That sounds like something our country's going to need for this prolonged war. Split these forces up a little bit, fully blockade the Chinese. That's a lot of soldiers. That's a tremendous amount of Korean soldiers. Alright, we'll hit them when they're all split apart. And that should do us quite a bit of good. Also, now we at least have war score ticking in both favors, or both for us and against us. We'll just start smashing Korean armies and see if that does us any good. Which it should. It should do us quite a bit of good. Alright, got us back up to 5% war score. If we manage to really pull this off, then this could be just a very great turnaround. Can we actually get them? Seems like it's going to be annoying, but we might. South Korea is probably a good province. Just Busan. But then we have a land front against the Chinese if we go back for more later on, which we're probably going to want to do, but if it's really feasible or not, it's going to remain to be seen. Alright, so we managed to pull that off a bit. We did lose control over that one province, but it's no real tremendous loss. We are +7 due to battles. Alright, so we pulled that off. We'll go take over Seoul. And hopefully just bring the Chinese economy down slowly over time. Alright, there we go. Formosa is now working into our favor. Alright, so yeah, this is doable. We'll at least get something. Temperance League, let's go ahead and accept that. Kind of just bothering our people. They are getting really uppity, just in general. But that should help us pass reforms. We are at 4 militancy and 5.2 consciousness. So in a way, it's actually good that this is a war, because if we do end up making these tremendous Chinese territory level gains, then, you know, it kind of makes sense just from a realistic standpoint that it would cost us, at least at the bare minimum, us having to deal with some level of actual threat in war. So, yeah, who knows? We'll see how this all turns out. We'll go ahead and pass more trade union laws. That'll affect the entire, 13,000 people in our industry. And yeah, we'll just keep going on from there. I don't want to actually fight China itself. I've mentioned that before. They have just an overwhelming amount of forces. And we're not really going to be able to do anything about that other than maybe do some probing attacks, but even that's a little ridiculous. Let's go ahead and piss off the liberals a little bit. That'll press for more reforms. Hopefully not turn into an outright rebellion while all of our forces are just so lost in this Asiatic land war. And yeah, we just have to worry about the Chinese not actually sending their forces over to help. We can't really go and take back this island since we would have landing penalties, and that would be pretty awful. So yeah, we'll just kind of chill. Keep chilling, keep holding out. Hopefully get this more positive. You know, oh man, if I had realized that this is how this would have gone and not declared war on the Chinese alone, we could have gone after for Formosa. And because right now we're losing 15% war score because they control Shandong. So we would be at a good 22%. So if we had just taken over all this land and then demanded Shandong in the end, if we had done that, then it's really possible that we would have just managed to take over both of the two states, because we wouldn't have had that war score penalty. Something to consider for future wars, I suppose. Although, if this works, we won't be able to take any more of the Chinese islands, since we'll have Formosa. Looks like the Ottomans have pushed the Egyptians further out of the Middle East, which is to be expected. It's not really all that detrimental to us either, so oh well. We'll go ahead and pluck up this army, hopefully not lose any of our forces. We're just going to take them right on over into Korea. Probably not in that way, though, since that would just lead them to basically die. Alright, and yeah, we'll just keep this up. I'm not sure if we can move into Manchuria without triggering the Chinese armies to just come attack us. So if we move from Korea into Manchuria, that will be the moment of truth. But we don't really have any other options, since we do want to win the war, and we're only at 9% out of a necessary, well, 24. We can't even get Formosa yet. So we'll stick to it. Alright, considerable forces in Asia. That's really the strength of if you manage to take China over as a European power. You're just unstoppable. You'll have all of these troops, plus you're civilized. We're also kind of setting ourselves up for long-term pain if we get a decent-sized foothold in China without really pressing forward, because then the Chinese will eventually civilize. Let's reshuffle that cabinet, pass more trade union reforms. Alright, so what else do we need to do? We may as well take this opportunity to go back into our home states, and we'll go ahead and build wineries. We can afford some wineries, and that's really just nice to get some industry. Go ahead and do that. We also have the Greek Aegean Islands. What do they produce, I wonder? Oh, more stuff for wineries. We'll just chill for a minute. Get some money. We can actually afford it now. Let's build that winery. And we took a little bit of debt to just buy all of the goods we needed the day of. That's a little annoying, but not really anything negative. Looks like we borrowed from the Ottomans, so that's interesting that they like us enough to do that. Now we have positivism, which is good. We'll go ahead and get functionalism, get that literacy rate up. We might end up fighting actual legitimate battles against these forces. At least the Manchurian forces. We'll try to stay at least a province away from the Chinese border itself. And I'll still take over Korea only until there's a one-province gap. We'll actually test this theory and see if I'm just making stuff up or if that's actually something true. Meanwhile, our transports are shockingly still at 100% health. So we'll get an actual army with a decent cavalry unit fairly soon. And it looks like we have an entirety of 6 craftsmen who these 3 different factories are going to be built to keep doing their thing. We might even want to encourage them, but really no, because we don't have very high of a population, so we don't want to over-focus on industrialization. Especially since we're only going to be producing the most bare, really the most small-scale sort of industry. Although we do export a lot of fruit, so we could shift that into wine really easily. We're at 13% war score. We are maxed out at minus 16.8 for not actually owning Shandong. And we're getting more and more for Formosa every day. We're losing because of defender blockades, which seems to be this guy over here, so we'll split this navy in half. You know, we should actually probably have done that the opposite way. Combine these guys, since it's 2 frigates here. Split these guys, and we'll go ahead and just do that. Oh, look at that. So we do now have Manchurian forces in Korea. Chinese forces are still just sitting back. Alright, yeah, we've definitely got the attention of the Manchurians by getting onto their border. So, what do we do with that being the case? Well, it looks like we just got the rest of our army, so that's very good news. We will go ahead and just start charging at their armies headlong. focusing with the smallest army first, the farthest away from any support, and then we'll just kind of see how it plays out from there. And we'll bring everybody to bear. Looks like they're also going to be piling their forces together. Oh wow, they just straight up attacked us. Oh, and they're winning. Not as much as I would have feared. In fact, considerably less than I had feared. Alright, let's actually go try to destroy that army entirely. Destroy that army in its entirety, is really what I was aiming to say. Alright, the Chinese have actually gotten into the fray all of a sudden, which is very bad news. So what are we going to do about that? If we win a couple more battles, we may be able to just peace out. And we're going to just merge all of these armies into one massive army. And see if we can't win this war kind of in a blitz. Alright. Do we have enough war score right at this very moment? That is the question. The answer is yes. Wow. Huh. This is one of those moments where it's very easy to just go for broke. And I'm not going to do that. We're going to just accept this peace deal right now, get ourselves Shandong and Formosa, and now it's going to be very hard for me to convince myself not to just keep digging into the Chinese Empire. I wonder if the Russians... Let's see. We already lost our alliance with the British. We're still in their sphere, though, so we probably won't be able to ally anybody else. The Ottomans aren't in anyone's sphere. Although the Russians and the French like them. The Russians will not ally us because we're in another sphere, and some other reasons. I guess they just don't like us. Well, let's figure out why. Infamy. Well, alright, that's understandable. Infamy, and because we're in someone else's sphere, so we're probably going to just have to go back to the British, who will hopefully be less awful to us now. And they've accepted an alliance request. We might be able to eventually push even further into China. That is a very real possibility. We're also going to go ahead and just get rid of our undermanned brigades. That might be a little bit ahead of ourselves to do that, but it might work out. Alright, so now we can build a considerably larger amount of forces. We can also go ahead and shift the soldier production focus, or soldier focus, over to Shandong, since it's a just much larger place. We can get far more... Alright. Alright, so, looks like we have a crisis over really the most sensible place it could be, thank God. Sometimes it's over places like Western or Eastern Macedonia, and then our country would just look terrible. But let's take a look. So far, it's Prussia and the Ottomans. Probably the Russians will join their side as well. Ooh. Oh, rude. Okay, so the British declined, but the Russians accepted. So this is very eminently doable. Alright, so, I guess we'll see how that works out. First of all, we could give our people the vote. Don't really want to do that. We could give them more political representation. We'll go ahead and do that since that's easy. I probably shouldn't have done it so we could have passed social reforms. I immediately realized. But whatever. Now look at that. We're just making tons of money, fund education, fund the soldiery. Yeah, we don't really need to tax anyone less. So what are we going to do now? Well, we're going to build a military. And of course we can build new troops basically everywhere we just took over. We'll start off with some dragoons, because dragoons are just decent all around. And we'll just get infantry for now, since we're going to be using our forces mainly in just small groups. Except for this, we'll go ahead and get 2 dragoons, 2 infantry, 2 cavalry. That brings us up to 3 infantry, 3 artillery, 4 infantry. Alright, we'll actually have to split this into 2 groups, or maybe 3, so we'll actually spread it around quite a bit. But this should be a decent amount. We're really not going to have set armies of any real strength for a while. We're just going to be dealing with it in kind of an ad hoc manner. We probably, in fact, should have built another engineer, since we probably are at this stage where we need engineers. And we can't really recruit anyone else anywhere else except for another guy over here. We could be very Dragoon heavy. That's not really a bad thing, at least not at this stage in the game. Eventually it will be at least less ideal, less optimal. But for now, it should be just fine. We also can't fabricate any wars against anybody else while we're dealing with this whole crisis, which we should probably be following. So it looks like we have Austria and France and the Russians. The British are actually going against us, which is terrible. The Spanish are going against us, and the Belgians are, well, maybe going to go for us. So the question is, can the UK and Prussia bludgeon to death the rest of Europe and also us? Well, the UK can certainly bludgeon us to death, so we should probably take this opportunity to get our forces, I guess, as close to the actual fighting as we can, or just as far from the British Empire as we can. Neither of which are really easy things to do. We'll just keep our forces in China. If we can defeat the local British forces when the crisis turns into a war, then we have a decently defensible position. We'll also start building a naval base there, and we'll also build a naval base over here. Just since naval bases seem to be a pretty important thing for us to have. And yeah, we'll see how the world plays out for this crisis. It looks like it's going to turn to war. Honestly, at this point, I don't really see an alternative to that, since we do have a considerable amount of force on our side. But the opposition is a very powerful thing itself. Luckily, the Prussians are the war leader instead of the UK, so as long as France, Austria, and Russia are able to just smash them thoroughly, then the war should end, relatively quickly, and I don't want to say bloodlessly, because God knows it's going to be an awful thing. And we don't really have enough time to... Oh, wow, they have a lot of forces. So the British aren't really taking any chances. I'm not sure if we have enough time even to get our forces back to our homeland, which is really where they will be needed the most. We might be able to get our forces over into the Middle East, and from there press into the Ottoman territories. Even that might be risking it. The worst case would be if our army is sunk out at sea, which is a very real possibility. We also forgot to set any rally points, so we went ahead and did that right there. Alright, and this could really be the moment of truth then. Okay, Spain is joined on the opposition's side. Belgium, it's really up to Belgium right now. Oh yeah, our navy is not going to make it. Where are they? Worst place possible. Alright, we're going to land our forces right there as soon as we can. And hopefully... Oh, white piece. That was really down to the wire. Alright, so we didn't actually gain anything. We didn't lose anything either, so that's very nice. Just had to worry for a little bit over nothing. We'll go ahead and incorporate that new factory, since why not? And the British are still our allies. We didn't just go into a death war with them. So we can turn our fleet around, land here, and go back to plotting the destruction of the European powers that were just about to help us. At least the Russians. The Ottomans would have been against us, so, meh. Alright, does anyone like Punjab? The British kind of do. Not enough, though. We're also going to switch out the Russian faction for the French faction. Once again, grabbing that sweet, sweet jingoism, and our people don't care because we haven't given them the right to vote on that anyway. And yeah, so we'll do that. We'll get our forces back and forth and just kind of get that all pieced together. We have this one unit. We'll go ahead and bring it over into Greek Asia. And this is really going to be the area from which we expand for quite a while, although realistically we should probably be focusing more on Japan and China, since we're just immensely more wealthy now that we've taken over part of China. And Japan is also very populous and very rich. So if we were just going straight min-max, trying to make the most powerful Greece we could, there would be a very strong argument for just trying to conquer Japan. Although they're in the sphere of the influence of the United States, so never mind, that argument's gone. We wouldn't want to fight the Americans, and even if we brought the British to bear against them, they only have a small garrison, and the Americans are on their homeland. So that wouldn't really work out for us. Alright, so that kind of eases me a little bit into this idea that we're going to definitely be fighting in, well, Central Asia. Alright, and it looks like the Punjab military never actually got back up to its former greatness. So we can go and probably just take this territory very easily. The British are going to be an interesting thing in this one. They don't have very much infamy, so it's likely that if we declare another war that they will actively join and try to take stuff for themselves. I'm going to go ahead and just declare it, if not justify it. We'll demand their one concession we can take. And we're going to hope really hard that it doesn't trigger some sort of landslide where Persia joins, then Russia joins. And if they do, then we're going to just call our own allies, the British. Alright, looks like they got Kokand, or, well, Kokand is going to work as well as anything else for their name. And I don't even think they can reach us. They might ask for access, but that doesn't really matter. We're not going to ally the Pope. I don't think they're really able to help us, really just hinder us, and why would we look for that? Alright, and that battle was won, and won easily. We'll even go ahead and split our forces, if for no other reason than just to taunt them into attacking us, which they may well do. Other than that, we'll just take their capital, and then probably press up and take the region in question. We're going to lose some of our territories, but this is all kind of wasteland anyway. Actually, is it? Am I just making that up? It's not all that populated. May as well just be wasteland. We'll go and get biologism, get all of that sweet, sweet literacy, and third world slave armies. The basis of any good country in Victoria, too. Alright, looks like our army in China is not going to be ready to have any active support for quite some time. We're going to be losing war score because of all these occupations, but also gaining some once we take over their capital, because, I mean, that's significantly more important than just some random backwater provinces. Looks like they are going for it, though, so we're going to have to fight them there. That really stops us taking over Lahore, but this battle war score is going to do us well. And then it looks like we'll be able to just turn that army around. There we go. Not as quick as I had hoped, but not so slow that it really damages us. Alright, and we won that battle just straight out. They're not going to accept our peace. Okay, so, best case scenario. We just take over their capital province, they bow out, war's over, we win. Less optimal, but probably just as likely situation is the war drags on, they take over enough of this that they don't want to give up. We're going to have to use that Chinese army once it inevitably becomes something that we can rely on and actually bring into the fight. Which, I'm not actually sure if we're still making any troops, so... Oh, we are making one more soldier. How many can we actually bring, though? Alright, we can transport 13 units, so that's actually good. We'll just bring the entire Chinese army, and then once they're all in this part of Asia, we'll be able to determine what the army composition we're going to actually end up with for a while will look like. Hopefully these guys will come and attack us. Hopefully it'll take them long enough to get here that we get at least one more siege done. Occupation done. Alright, there we go. That's great. Another little fun fact is you can start moving to intercept a day before they arrive, and they won't reconsider. So right now, they have a day before they arrive, we can start moving over. Sometimes that day is enough to really make or break you. Alright, bam, we won that. We'll go ahead and chase them down. And I wouldn't be surprised if we win this war right when that occurs. Boom. By that I kind of mean this occupation and also this final battle. And now at this point we can also just start undoing what they've done to us. Oh yeah, look at that. They're completely ready to concede. Alright, thanks Punjab. Hopefully the British don't come up and take you now, because that would be absolutely disgusting looking. Alright, and furthermore, doubly lucky for us, Persia didn't get involved, so we can actually just justify on them directly. We don't have to go through some awful process of taking 5 infamy to demand anything. And we're going to go after Loristan Sistan. Now, this is really one of those moments where it does make some level of sense for us to just go for broke when we attack the Persians. The Russians, I'm not going to say almost certainly, but there's a decent probability that the Russians will intervene. We also are going to want to get naval techs as this game, or naval-based technologies as this game goes on, since eventually we are really going to want to be able to colonize Africa. Since we're already a secondary power, we're probably going to be a great power by the time that happens. Portugal wants to ally us. They're decently a colonial empire, so we will accept. Oh wait, but that might bring them into the Persian War if we call our allies. So we'll just leave that up in the air for right now. The Persians, though, they only have 7 brigades. That's really nothing at all. And where's our fleet? Our fleet's inbound. Alright, so realistically, we're about 56 minutes into this. There's no real reason to bring into being this Persian War and all of the complexities that it has the very real potential to entail this episode. And if we end the episode before making this fatal step, although it's not really a fatal step, it's just a step that may potentially be fatal. Whoop. Ow. Alright, so we're basically almost done with that justification. Our armies didn't split nearly as equitably, let's say, although I don't really like that word, as it would have been nice for them to, so we'll just really quickly recombine them and then manually split them up, because why would we want an army with two engineers and one without any? Alright, that's good enough. Well, actually, let's do this again. I see why it kind of messed up the last time. We'll just give this army 2 dragoons, and that's basically equivalent, at least equivalently sized. Alright, so we'll move this army up. And yeah, so we can declare war on Persia right now. They'll probably be defended by the Russians. Let's see right now what the odds are that the British will support us. And what province are we going after anyway? Loristan Sistan. Alright, so we declare war. We ask for Loristan Sistan. It's 23 war score. And the United Kingdom will accept, the Portuguese will not, but we don't really, well, I didn't really anticipate the Portuguese help in the first place. At any rate, thank you very much for watching. Honestly, I'm really glad that anyone's watching at all, and thanks a lot for your comments and everything. Yeah. I guess I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day.